Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to try and make some 3D Pokemon cards. Now, I'm actually a collector of Pokemon cards, so I have a lot of doubles, but I still feel it ashamed to cut up cards that are not too common. So I'm starting off with the 3 starters of the Pokemon Go set. So, you know, that I can actually practice on all 3. And I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to start out with 4 cards that I'm going to use the parts of. Just to, you know, layer it, start off simple, and maybe in the future I will do 1 card with many more layers for the characters and stuff. But for now I thought to get into this, starting simple is the best way. So I basically thought about first what I wanted to have 3D. So I decided, you know, the information bars with the weaknesses and stuff, the one with the net weight underneath, the Pokemon Go logo, of course the character, and the icons for which, of the energy cards you need for which attack, would be the perfect things to start on. So that is what I started cutting out. Now the cards are a bit thicker, so it's kind of hard to cut them in one go. So I noticed that I'm using a fresh detail blade here that I put into my knife, but I struggled quite a bit in some parts and had to go over them multiple times, which, you know, didn't leave the best of edges. I think I need to find a way next time to improve that a little bit. I need to maybe test out a couple more blades and see if I can actually find one that works the best. But this kind of worked out okay, and I kind of expected it since the, you know, cards are layered with multiple layers that make them very sturdy. But I started cutting out the characters and, you know, in some layers since I needed to layer the arms and head. I also decapitated some of them and, you know, cut off the arms. And then I began working on the rest, like the tail and the flames in this case. The flames in the background. I'm going to cut out some from multiple cards just so I will be able to layer this. But overall, you know, again, it's just repetitive work of cutting these things out and deciding which ones you want at which layer. But I knew I wanted to have the flames in the background. There's one stone on this card to the right that is looking like it's a bit more in the foreground, so I'm going to cut that out too. And just very patiently, very carefully going around all the pieces. I also found out pretty quickly that in some cases you cannot really cut, it's actually easier to carefully stab the knife tip to get into some of the nooks and crannies to actually, you know, really get all the details. I do actually really love 3D Pokemon card art. I watched a lot of Instagram reels on it, and I think it's just an amazing way of bringing the artworks really to life, because a lot of the Pokemon cards really have beautiful artworks. The artists that are making these are exceptional. And you know, there's so many different art styles, from people that are painting them to digital artists to people that even crochet or sculpt them. Or figure photography that's also used on cards. And I think it's such an amazing showcase of all the different art styles. And also no Pokemon in each set is the same style. So you have, you know, the same Pokemon from different card sets and they're all in different styles, which I really like. Because that means that you're not, you know, stuck on one single art style for your favorite Pokemon. You can search out the cards you really like. Now, as I said, I'm going to use very common cards here, and I actually have a lot of these because I almost finished my Pokemon Go set. I know a lot of people didn't really care about this set. I do like playing Pokemon Go, and I do like a lot of these cards. My favorite of these set have to be the Lapras and the Mewtwo just being in the city. I think those are beautiful art cards, and you know, it does seem a bit out of place sometimes with the backgrounds that the Pokemon are in, but that's what Pokemon Go is about. You have your Pokemon in real life, you know, you can take pictures with them and all that. And I think that's just beautiful, and I was really happy when they announced this set at the time. For the background, I actually wanted to give it a bit of texture, so I used a really fine ball stylus and like indented the card a bit, and as you can see it left a really beautiful like stone as texture. I also textured the clouds a little bit. And then I was debating on texturing the text for the attack, but I decided against that because it just didn't look good. I'm glad I like tested it out on the background card first before proceeding to the front. And then all that was left to do was applying some of this like card tape that I'm using. It's basically for like greeting cards, and just layering these up. Actually, I made them look a bit more rounded. You can, if you have like a soft surface, there's specific like rubber-esque surfaces for this, for like making things 3D. So I think it's more closer to embossing, but I used like larger ball styly, and then from the back I carefully rolled it onto my soft like placemat that I had. And what that did is it made a curve into all of the surfaces, and that's how I got the head a bit more rounded and the belly and all that stuff. And as I said, I went really simple here. I just did a background layer, then a layer for, you know, the arm and leg in the back, and then the belly, you know, the tail's also just one layer, and then the head in front. I could have also like cut out the mouth, the eyes, put them backwards a little bit, cut out the feet, layer them, and all that kind of thing, like make the belly a bit more separate. But as I said, I decided to go simple, so I just layered like 3 layers on each. And then it was actually time for the Bulbasaur, and for this guy I decided to also, you know, he has a very detailed background, so I decided to cut a bit more pieces out of that as well. Starting out with this pillar, and I'm also going to go over to the flower pot and cutting that. And I'm always trying to get as much out of one card as I possibly can. Now there's some limitations because the card where you cut out the like rectangle where the Pokemon art is in, you know, that kind of needs to be untouched else, because, you know, it's the one card that's gonna be on top and basically building up the frame of this. So you don't really want to cut anything out from this, but for like, you know, layering the Pokemon, I obviously need to cut it out from multiple other cards. The good thing about the one that's the frame is if you cut out the rectangle very carefully, you can still use the pieces of the art as like cutout for layering. So that works out really well. You just have to be super careful when cutting that you don't, you know, overcut on any of the edges. And for this one, of course, I also wanted to texture it, so again I'm going in with my ball stylus, and with this you can really see how much the texture pops out. You know, detailing all of the little leaves, the stone path and the vines and stuff in the background really made a huge difference. I'm positive that if you have a lot of cards you can even layer the background. I really want to try in the future to see if I have a card that I have like a lot of, and just like really trying to max out the 3D effect here with layers on layers on layers. And also the other thing I noticed is that the tape I have, since the cards are laminated a little bit more so they're more shiny, the tape doesn't really hold that sturdy, but since I decided to put these in a frame it's fine. But I decided for some parts I'm going to use glue. Now I did leave a little bit of like smudging behind on the edges, but I managed to clean most of that up. And actually the way of like getting that off the card, surprisingly enough, was a silicone shaper with a flat edge that actually picked up like a lot of the glue. You will see when I show you guys the final shots that, you know, there is not much glue left, but yeah, I definitely need to pick up a bit of a stronger tape, and maybe one that's actually thick before, and the one I used is a very thin version, so it doesn't have the foam piece in the middle, so I had to add some cardboard myself to make some pieces higher up. But I know there's a lot of tape out there that does that already. Plus, like, I'm positive that a lot of the tape out there is actually a bit stronger than this. The one I have is really strictly for paper, but it's the only one I had so far, and I really didn't want to purchase anything before knowing if I wanted to continue or at least try once more on this. But I think I'm going to pick up some of this tape if I can find it somewhere. And if not, I will have to order it, and just really try and find one card that I have a lot and lots of doubles of, just to make, like, you know, the most detailed artwork ever. Now for the Squirtle, I think that was the most detailed card, since it also was the last. You know, there's a lot of background here that you can layer. You have the river, you have the little like side islands of this, and you know, you really have like a lot of plants. I could have layered the plants, but again, I did want to go more simple, so I decided to cut them out together with the riverbank and just, you know, use it as one piece. But yeah, if I make a really detailed card, I want to have one that also has as much background details, so I can layer all the plants, layer the like grass and all that stuff. You know, I think that would be really beautiful, and just like make it a bit more deep, because although these cards have a 3D effect, it's definitely not as stunning as some of the more practiced artists make it look on like Instagram and other pages. But you know, I have the feeling it definitely takes a lot more experience to like try that out, and a lot more patience, and I need to find the right cutting techniques for some of this stuff. Actually, the flowers were so thin that like 1 or 2 of the stems broke, but that was fine since I, you know, glued them on the same layer. So I just added a little bit more glue there and like carefully applied the plant on top. And I also need to practice on which part to do first, because I noticed, you know, I started out with part of the character and the frame, then I had to squeeze the river banks underneath, kind of the card edge a little bit to make it a bit more layered look. I think I need to start out with like, you know, doing the artwork first and trying to like really layer that in the way it's supposed to. But in the end, I think it still worked out nicely. And this time I actually went around the edges of a lot of the character things. I'm just using some water-based markers, and I'm coloring the edges because this cardboard has more of a white edge when you cut it. I know that a lot of people use like black outlines, but in this case, since this is more of like a watercolor or like more pencil drawing-esque style, I didn't want to rough of edges. I wanted to keep this soft look, so I went, you know, with fitting colors that are maybe just a bit darker than the ones that are in the image themselves. I also know that some people actually use resin to like color in some of the like more liquid stuff, like the mouth, the eyes, and like for example water in the background. I didn't do that here either because, as I said, I wanted to keep it more simple, but this already took like hours to make. But honestly, it was a lot of fun, and even just these simple results I think are super stunning. Again, there's obviously a lot for me to learn, but it was so much fun that yeah, I'm definitely going to do this again. But let me know in the comments down below what you think about these kind of 3D card arts, and also let me know what your favorite Pokemon is. Mine personally are Vulpix and Ninetales. I do have a lot more favorites, but these are my absolute top tier ones. You know, they're fox-based, so of course I like them, and they're super adorable and beautiful. But as always, I hope you have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye!